They say the deepest betrayals don't come from enemies, but from the people you love the most. I never thought I'd be the man staring at a closed door, heart racing, afraid to turn the handle of his own home. Yet there I was, standing outside the study, her study, with a manila envelope in my hand and 100 questions in my mind. My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm 38 years old, a mechanical engineer, and until last week, I believed I had a perfectly ordinary marriage with a woman I trusted more than anyone in the world, Elena. We'd been married for almost 12 years. She was kind, elegant, the type of woman who made you feel calm just by being in the room. She worked part-time at a publishing house, mostly editing quiet poetry books. I admired her solitude. She was private, not secretive. Or so I thought. It all started on a Sunday afternoon. I had gone into the attic to find my old college textbooks, nothing unusual. But while shifting boxes, I knocked over a dusty carton labeled "Winter Clothes." Inside, instead of wool coats and scarves, I found a stack of letters, worn and carefully tied with a red ribbon. Most were from a woman named Nina, addressed to someone named Lena. Lena? That wasn't a name I recognized. At first, I thought maybe it was a friend from college or a childhood pen pal, but as I read deeper, I realized something wasn't right. These letters weren't about school memories or vacations. They were filled with apologies, memories of nights spent hiding, references to things like the cabin and our silence agreement. There was something intimate about them, haunting, even. The final letter in the stack had no signature, just 2 words written in capital letters: "He can never know." I felt the temperature in the attic drop 10 degrees. My hands trembled. I wanted to believe there was a logical explanation. But as I stood in our kitchen that evening, watching Elena stir soup like nothing was wrong, I couldn't help but stare at her, like I didn't even know who she was. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I began observing. Quietly. Carefully. Her phone was always on silent. She never left it lying around. There were times she went on walks that lasted hours. She'd smile when she came home, but her eyes didn't match the smile anymore. Then yesterday, I found a key. It was hidden behind one of her books, The Secret Garden, of all things. The key didn't fit anything in our house. So I followed her today. She said she was visiting her sister across town. I knew her sister had been out of the country for 2 weeks. She drove to an old part of the city, parked, and walked into a building I'd never seen her near before. I waited. 20 minutes. 30. Then she came out, but not alone. A man followed her. He was tall, well-dressed, and older than me. They didn't touch. But they talked like old friends. Or like something more. Then she handed him something. A small envelope. They didn't see me. But I saw enough. I drove back home, heart pounding, barely remembering the turns. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed answers. Now here I am, in front of her study, envelope in hand, about to open the one room in the house she always said was her sanctuary. I twist the knob. The door creaks open. And what I see inside doesn't just shake me. It rewrites everything. The room was nothing like I'd expected. Elena's study, usually off-limits, always too messy for guests, was immaculately organized. Neat shelves lined the walls, filled with poetry, psychology books, and dusty notebooks. But what caught my eye wasn't any of that. It was the large corkboard mounted on the wall, hidden behind a decorative curtain. I pulled the curtain aside and stared. Photographs. Dozens of them. Not of us. Not of our wedding, or vacations, or dinners. But of people I didn't know. A girl, maybe 8 or 9, in a green hoodie, smiling at a park. A man with gray hair and glasses, leaning against a cafe counter. Another photo showed Elena, laughing, not with me, but with a group of people I had never met in my life. Names were scribbled in red marker underneath each photo. Notes. Arrows connecting people. Some of the photos were dated. Others simply said, "Don't forget," or, "Still watching." I backed away from the wall, breath catching in my throat. Who was she? That night, I couldn't sleep. Elena lay beside me, her breathing calm and steady. How could someone sleep so peacefully while building a secret life? I watched her for hours, searching her face for answers that wouldn't come. I started to replay our entire marriage in my head. The gaps. The stories that never quite added up. The time she said she had to fly to visit her aunt, yet the flight confirmation she forwarded me had a different date from the ticket stub I later found in the laundry. I had always explained those moments away. We trust the people we love. We choose to believe them. But now, I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I waited until she left for her editorial meeting. As soon as the car pulled out of the driveway, I went back to the study. There was a locked drawer in her desk. I used a butter knife to pry it open. Inside, I found 2 passports. One was hers, with her name, Elena Hayes. The other? It was the same woman in the photo, but with a different name entirely, Lena Winters. It was the same face. Same eyes. Same soft smile. But a completely different identity. I flipped through the pages. There were stamps from places I didn't even know she'd visited: Portugal, Morocco, Berlin. A third item in the drawer made my blood run cold. A birth certificate. Not ours. Not for a child I knew. It listed Elena, under her alternate name, as the mother. The father's name? Left blank. The child? A girl. No surname. Just Eva. Who was Eva? I stared at that paper for what felt like hours. The clock ticked. My mind raced. I thought about every time Elena had insisted we never have children. Not ready, she'd say. Let's travel first. But maybe we didn't share that dream because she already had a child. And I'd never known. Later that night, I couldn't pretend anymore. Elena, I said softly, as she folded laundry in the bedroom, who's Eva? Her hands froze mid-fold. She didn't look at me. Just kept her eyes on the cotton t-shirt in her hands. I repeated, who is Eva? She sat down on the edge of the bed, silent for a long moment. Then finally, she whispered, not now. Please. No. Now. She finally looked up at me, and her eyes were full of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Guilt. She's someone I had to leave behind, she said. Before you. Before this life. That's not an answer, I replied, voice shaking. She reached out, her hand brushing mine. You have no idea what I gave up to be with you, Daniel. I tried to bury that past. But the past doesn't stay buried, does it? I pulled away. No. It doesn't. And now I'm wondering if I ever knew the truth about anything. She didn't deny it. She just looked down. And for the first time in our 12 years of marriage, I felt completely alone in the room with her. I didn't sleep that night. The silence between Elena and me echoed louder than any argument ever could. Her face, the one I had woken up next to for over a decade, now seemed unfamiliar. Each breath she took beside me was a reminder that the woman I married might not be who I thought she was. But I wasn't the only one losing sleep. The next morning, I received a message from an unknown number: "Stop digging into Lena's past, or you'll regret it." There was no name. No clue. Just a cold warning. Lena. That name again. So someone else knew her as Lena, her other identity. And they were watching me. I stared at the message, my pulse quickening. This was no longer just a marital crisis. This was something deeper. Maybe even dangerous. Over the following days, Elena became increasingly withdrawn. She left the house without telling me where she was going. I stopped asking. I started investigating. I visited the local library and requested old newspaper archives. Searching her alias, Lena Winters, I found an article from 8 years ago: "Local child missing, Eva Winters, age 5. The article included a photo of the child. The same girl from the corkboard in Elena's study. The report said the child vanished from a park while in her mother's care. The mother, Elena, under her alias, was never formally charged, but authorities suspected negligence. The mother has since disappeared, the report ended. So Elena had run. Left everything behind. Including her child. I was stunned. Shocked. But I couldn't tell if I felt more betrayed, or heartbroken. Why hadn't she told me? Had she done something terrible? Or was she escaping something worse? That night, I confronted her again. Not angrily, just needing truth. "Elena," I said, "I know about Eva. I know she went missing." She dropped the coffee mug in her hand. It shattered across the kitchen floor. For the first time, she looked truly terrified. "I didn't lose her," she whispered. "She was taken from me." My breath caught. I was young. Stupid. I was running from someone dangerous. He said if I ever left him, he'd take her. I didn't believe him, until the day she disappeared from that park. No ransom note. No trace. Nothing. Her hands trembled. And the police didn't believe me. They thought I staged it. Said I looked too calm. But I was numb, Daniel. I was frozen. I didn't know how to grieve properly. I couldn't speak. I changed my name. I rebuilt my life. I met you. You were a kind of salvation I didn't think I deserved. Her confession should have brought clarity. Instead, it opened a new flood of questions. Who was the man she had run from? Was he still alive? Still watching her? Had the message I received been from him? My mind reeled. Everything I thought I knew had unraveled into a deeper, darker web. And then, just as I thought I couldn't be more blindsided, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera at the front door. A man stood there, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. Elena looked over my shoulder, and all the color drained from her face. "That's him," she said. "The man who had taken her child. The man she ran from. He had found us." The man at the door didn't flinch. His posture was calm, too calm. He tilted his head slightly toward the camera, like he knew we were watching. Elena gripped my arm. Her nails dug into my skin, but I didn't move. I was frozen, not just by fear, but by the look in her eyes. Not just terror, recognition. And guilt. "Don't answer," she whispered. I didn't. Instead, I stepped back and locked the deadbolt, then pulled her away from the door. "You need to tell me everything. Now." She hesitated, breathing heavily. "His name is Rick. Rick Maddox. I met him when I was 19. I thought I was in love. He was older, charming, dangerous. At first, I didn't see the signs. But once I got pregnant, everything changed. He owned me." Her voice cracked. "When I tried to leave, he threatened to hurt Eva. One day, he did more than threaten. He took her." My heart pounded. "You said he disappeared." "He did. For years. I thought he left the country or maybe something happened to him. But now, he's back. And if he's here, it means he wants something." The doorbell rang again. And again. A pause. Then a slow, deliberate knock. I peeked out the blinds. The man was still there, but now he held something. A folder. "Elena," I said slowly, "he has documents." She ran to the window. When she saw the folder, her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor. I knelt beside her. "What is it?" "I don't know," she said through tears. "But whatever it is, he wants to control me again." I needed answers. I grabbed my phone and dialed the local police. I told them a man was outside threatening us, gave them our address. They said an officer would arrive in 10 minutes. It felt like 10 hours. Rick didn't move. He stood like a statue on our porch, folder still in hand, waiting patiently. Elena whispered, "He's always like this. Calm. Calculated. He doesn't shout, doesn't hit. He controls with silence and fear." I was angry now. Not just for her, but for myself. For believing I had known her. For not seeing the weight she carried. We waited. 5 more minutes. Then, Rick left. Just walked away. No threats. No words. He turned and strolled down the street like a neighbor out for a walk. When the police finally arrived, he was long gone. We showed them the footage. They took our statement. And that's when they told us something chilling. There's no record of a Rick Maddox in the National Registry. No address. No job history. Nothing. It's like he doesn't exist. That night, we barely spoke. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sit still. My thoughts were spiraling. Who was this man really? What did he want from Elena? And most haunting of all, was Eva still alive? The next morning, I went back to the folder he had left behind on our doorstep. It was sealed. I opened it. Inside was a photograph, of a girl. A teenager. She had Elena's eyes. A sticky note was attached, "She's mine now." I stared at the photo for what felt like forever. It wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration. And suddenly, I understood why Rick had come back. He didn't want Elena. He didn't want money. He wanted to destroy what little peace she had left. And he had found the perfect way to do it. By showing her the daughter she thought was lost. And taking her all over again. I couldn't stop staring at the photo. The girl looked like Elena, same dark hair, same intense eyes, but older than Eva would have been when she was taken. She was maybe 15 now. Maybe 16. I handed the photo to Elena. Her hands trembled. A sob escaped her lips. "She's alive," she whispered. For the first time, her pain and guilt gave way to something else, hope. But it was fragile, like glass balanced on the edge of a table. One wrong move and it would shatter again. Elena stood suddenly. "We need to find her. I don't care how. If he's come back and she's with him, I won't let him hurt her again." She was already pacing, grabbing her phone, mumbling the names of old friends, people who might know something. I watched her fall into a storm of desperation. I couldn't stop her. I couldn't calm her. But then, I noticed something. On the back of the photograph, faint handwriting in black ink, "Elena. You were never the mother she needed. I had to protect her." I froze. "Elena, look at this." She read it. Slowly. Then again. Then she sat back down. Silent. I watched her eyes go cold. "That's not Rick's handwriting." "What do you mean?" I asked. She stood again, but slower this time, like the weight of the words was sinking in. "That's my sister's handwriting." My heart stopped. "I haven't seen her in over a decade," Elena said, voice hollow. "We had a falling out. I thought she moved abroad. She hated me for choosing Rick. She always said he was poison. That I was too blind to see it. I didn't understand." "You think your sister took Eva?" Elena nodded slowly. "I think she made me believe Rick did. And now, she wants me to know the truth." Everything started unraveling. We dug through old emails, social media accounts, Elena's archived messages. Hours passed. We found a lead, an old email her sister, Claudia, had sent years ago with an attachment titled "Only When You're Ready." It was a video. Elena hesitated, then clicked play. Claudia appeared on screen. She was older now. Worn. She looked into the camera and said, "If you're watching this, then I've failed. I kept Eva safe for as long as I could. I watched you let that man back into your life, time and time again. I begged you to leave. You didn't. So I left, and I took her with me. I did what you couldn't. I saved her." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "You'll hate me. I understand. But know this, I didn't do it for revenge. I did it for her. And now, he's found us." The screen went black. That was the twist. All these years, Elena had blamed herself. She believed Rick had taken their daughter. But it wasn't him. It was her own sister, who had done what she couldn't bring herself to do. Who had stepped in when no one else would. And now Rick had found both of them. Everything changed. It wasn't just about finding Eva anymore. It was about saving her, from the man they all feared, and the woman who raised her in secret. And the worst part? The next morning, a package arrived at our door. Inside was a second photo. This one wasn't of Eva. It was of Claudia, tied to a chair. Her mouth taped shut. Her eyes pleading. And a single note, "You want your daughter? Trade her." The silence in the room after we opened that package was unlike anything I'd felt before. It wasn't just shock, it was the unbearable weight of realization. Claudia had been the protector all along. And now, she was the one who needed saving. Elena clutched the photograph of her sister tied to that chair as if it were her last connection to reality. Her knuckles turned white. She had spent years drowning in guilt, and just when the surface seemed within reach, this. Daniel took her hand. "We don't call the police yet. That's what he wants. He's trying to control this. But we do this smart." Elena looked up, dazed. "How do we fix this?" They didn't have much time. Rick was a man who thrived on chaos. He knew Elena better than anyone, knew how much her sister meant to her, even after all the betrayal and silence. He knew she'd do anything to protect her daughter. But he underestimated one thing: Elena had changed. She wasn't the frightened, manipulated woman she once was. She had learned how to love fiercely. How to lose and keep breathing. How to fight back. Daniel contacted an old friend, Matteo, a former private investigator who owed him a favor. Within hours, Matteo traced the origin of the package, an abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of the state. It was risky. Elena and Daniel knew it. But waiting wasn't an option. They arrived at the farmhouse just as dusk fell, the sky bruised purple and gold. The wind whistled through broken windows. Every creak of the wooden porch sounded like a scream. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and something colder. Elena called out. No answer. But then, a faint noise. A cough. They followed it into the basement. And there she was. Claudia, tied to the chair, just like in the photo. Bruised. Weak. But alive. Elena rushed forward, but Daniel held her back just in time. Trap, he whispered. Seconds later, Rick stepped out from the shadows, a gun in his hand. I knew you'd come, he said with a cruel smile. Always so predictable, Elena. She stared at him, unmoved. Where's Eva? She's safe, he said. And she'll stay that way, if you stay here. He gestured toward the chair next to Claudia. Sit. Or the girl disappears forever. Elena looked at him, and something in her face changed. The years of fear were gone. What remained was love, for her sister, for her daughter, and for herself. No, she said. I'm done letting you write my story. Before Rick could react, Daniel tackled him to the ground. The gun fired, once, twice, shattering a bulb above. Darkness. Screams. The fight was short, brutal, chaotic. When the dust settled, Rick was unconscious, restrained by Daniel with a belt. Elena untied Claudia, both women sobbing, holding each other like time had rewound and broken hearts had been sewn back together. Back at the hospital, Claudia recovered slowly. Eva was found hours later, hidden in a remote cabin not far from the farmhouse, confused but unharmed. And Elena? She finally let herself cry, not out of fear, but release. She sat beside her daughter's bed and whispered the words she had never dared to say, "I'm sorry I let him take so much from us. But I promise, we take it all back now." Weeks passed. Charges were pressed. Rick disappeared behind prison walls. Eva slowly began to understand the truth, with therapy, love, and time guiding her through it. Claudia moved in nearby, and for the first time in years, Elena had her family back, not perfect, but whole in the way that mattered most. And then came the final twist. Elena received another letter. But this one wasn't from Rick. It was from Eva. Slipped under her pillow, handwritten, sealed in lavender-scented paper. "I don't remember everything. But I know this, I always felt your love. Somehow, even when I was scared, I knew you were out there. Thank you for never giving up on me. You're not just my mother, you're my hero." Elena cried that night. But this time, the tears were soft. Cleansing. Because finally, her daughter was home. And so was she. 6 months after that chaotic night in the basement, the dust finally settled. Elena stood barefoot in the backyard, sunlight streaming through the trees, her hands wrapped around a warm mug. The scent of jasmine lingered in the air, mixing with the quiet hum of peace, a sensation that once felt impossible. Across the lawn, Claudia and Eva were laughing. Laughing. The kind of laugh that shakes loose old ghosts and replaces them with something real. So much had changed. Rick was behind bars, facing charges for kidnapping, coercion, and years of emotional abuse. The case made headlines briefly, but Elena didn't read a single article. She had lived enough of that nightmare. She was focused on writing something new. Her story. Daniel moved in a few weeks later, not as a savior, but as a steady presence. He never tried to replace anyone, never pushed too hard. He just showed up. Again and again. With coffee. With patience. With quiet reassurance that love could still exist, even after the world had burned. Elena had her daughter back, her sister beside her, and a man who didn't demand she shrink to fit into his life. Eva, though young, was stronger than they imagined. Therapy helped. So did honesty. Elena chose not to hide anymore, not the painful parts, not the broken bits. And somehow, Eva respected that more than any polished fairy tale. "I don't need perfect," she once told Elena. "I just need you." Claudia stayed in the guest room for a while, hesitant to get too comfortable. But little by little, she rebuilt her bond with Eva and her sister. She volunteered at a local shelter, started writing again, and helped Elena open a community support group for women who had lived through similar lies. Because their story wasn't just their own. It was every woman who was told she was imagining things, every mother who had to protect her child from someone she once trusted, every sister who made a mistake and thought it could never be forgiven. One afternoon, Eva brought home a school project. It was titled, "The Women Who Raised Me." 2 portraits, one of Elena, one of Claudia, framed by a short paragraph. They are not perfect, but they are brave. They taught me that surviving is its own kind of strength. They told the truth when it hurt. They stayed when it mattered. And that's how I learned what love really looks like. Elena cried for hours that night. But they were the good kind, the ones that soften your chest and let you breathe deeper than before. Their story didn't end with revenge or more destruction. It ended with rebuilding. With truth. With knowing that healing isn't a clean line, it's a messy road paved with honesty, vulnerability, and choice. Elena chose to forgive Claudia. Claudia chose to face her past. Eva chose to understand. And Daniel chose to stay.